Erica, thank you so much for inviting me to your studio. I want to know what made you move to Fort Wayne from Portland, Oregon?
Well, we were really looking for affordable housing, and Portland, Oregon is obscene housing prices wise. And then after the pandemic, things were just getting a little bit crazy there. So we're looking for something a little slower pace, a little more chill. And Fort Wayne, we did a lot of research, and Fort Wayne really
fit the bill?
Yeah.
And how has the art community embraced you, or have you even dived in?
Yeah, well, before we even moved here, we had come and visit, and we made a few friends. Someone who works over at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, and so we already had friends before we moved here. And then moving here, it's a really great art scene with a lot of people, and it's been very welcoming.
What about little Erica? Was she an artist?
Oh yeah, I've been an artist my whole life. I always say, I think at one point someone gave me attention for making art, and then I just kept doing it.
From there, it was, yeah. Were you always a painter?
You know, when I was a kid, I worked with markers a lot and did a lot of that. And then, yeah, eventually I think in high school, I found acrylic painting, and I went to art school. I dabbled a little in oil, and I just found, you know, the materials are so much more expensive, so much more caustic and sort of hard to work with. They dry so much slower.
I was gonna say, if nothing else, they're not efficient.
Yeah. So
what about the decision to go to art school? Did you always sort of know that you were going to study it further, or was that a game day decision?
I always wanted to do it seriously, but I didn't go to art school until I was about 27, so pretty late in life. And yeah, I just finally decided, you know what, let's do it. Let's go to art school and see what that's like. It was a good experience. I learned a lot that I don't think I would have learned just studying on my own.
And had you been creating that whole time and then said, okay, now I'm going to really dive in, or were you kind of exploring other avenues?
Yeah, I was dabbling more before, yeah. And then after art school, I got a lot more serious.
Tell me about how you start a painting. Do you have an idea of what it's going to be, or do you just start and let it inform you? How does that work?
Yeah, I have a process where I just sketch in my sketchbook, come up with ideas very loosely, and then eventually I'll work to a tighter drawing on paper, and then I transfer it to canvas from the paper. So I never really just start a painting right on the canvas. I usually have like a very regimented process of getting there.
And when you go through your sketchbook, what is the most predominant theme? What do you see more than anything?
I work a lot with plants. I really love plants. I study herbalism, and so a lot of times my work tends to be sort of like remembering things that I'm learning or being inspired by things that I'm learning, and then somehow that inspires a drawing or a painting.
Does it ever get frustrating when you have the inspiration in your head and it doesn't come out like you see it in your head on the paper? Or does it always?
You know, it doesn't always, and you know, there is some frustration, but really it's like, that's kind of part of the fun. It's like a puzzle, you know, you're playing a puzzle, and eventually the pieces come together, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. Okay, I read that a theme that comes up in your work, or that you are inspired often by dreams, and that a theme that comes up is death. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm just really intrigued by death. I don't know, I always have been. My father died pretty young, and it's very interesting to me. It's a huge mystery, and so yeah, I think it's just like a looming, you know, thing. So
tell me how you hope to or try to represent death in your work. Are you fearful? Is it scary? Or
I like to have sort of a hopeful theme around death. So a lot of times I'll have like skeletons or skulls, and I'll have plants growing out of them. There'll be sort of a upbeat whimsicalness, while there's also sort of a dark nature as well.
Yeah, I saw a lot of life with the death theme.
Yeah.
Tell me about your process of actually painting. So you do the sketch, you transfer it to canvas, and then how do you go about choosing your colors and all of that? Is that an organic process, or do you have that all planned out as well?
Yeah, over time I've really learned to narrow my color palette down. So I just work from 8 colors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm very specific about the colors I use, and that helps me to have a body of work that's very cohesive. So I like to just use these 8 tubes of paint, mix from there, and then yeah, I generally, if you look at my body of work, there's a lot of the same colors over and over again.
When you create your work, how much of you is in it? When you finish a piece, do you go, oh wow, I didn't even know that was in me, and there it is on the canvas? Or do you try to separate the two?
I feel like my work has really started to have a me feel about it. Like, I think that when you look at my work, if you know me and my work, you will recognize me in it.
Yeah. And is that a good thing, or are you reticent to put that much of yourself into your work?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's been a challenge throughout my artistic career to try and hone in on my own artistic style. You know, when you first start, you're kind of everywhere, you're trying a little bit of everything, and then eventually something starts to click, and then you have a formula. And so I'm at that point in my career where I feel like I have a formula. My work really speaks of who I am, and it has a nice cohesion to it.
Now that you feel like you're at that point, how would you describe your style?
I always say it's a little dark and a little whimsical. There's something playful about it. It's not too serious, but it also has a very serious edge as well.
What is the hardest part of creating for you? Is it finding inspiration? Is it the actual execution?
Yeah, you know, I think art is challenging and difficult, but I wouldn't necessarily call it hard because it's so rewarding when you get past that feeling. But yeah, I think the most difficult part would be like having an idea in your mind and making it that on canvas.
Yeah. So how often do you do that? Do you paint every day, or are you sketching every day? What does a day in the life look like?
Yeah, I paint every day. I wake up, I pour myself a cup of coffee, and I come up here and I just get started.
Wow.
And that's my favorite way to start my day.
Yeah. What is the best part of being an artist, of not just identifying as an artist, but waking up every day and doing the work?
Well, I think that I'm really happy to have a thing. I have a lot of friends who are like, I wish I had a thing. I don't know what I like or what I want out of life. You know, to have something that you can really devote yourself to is really rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next? Do you feel like there's a high watermark that you are searching for, or do you feel very content in your current state?
Yeah, you know, I try to ride the wave,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, I think life is just a series of like setting a goal, reaching it, setting a goal, reaching it. Once you reach the goal, you're never really as content as you thought you were going to be when you reached that goal.
Yes.
So it's really just like setting the next goal, hitting it, setting the next goal, hitting it, but enjoying the time in between.
Yes.
Like not getting lost in the idea that once I hit this thing, this mile marker,
Yeah.
that I'm going to be there.
So much of your work is indicative of you and your person, but how much of your art have you learned from? Do you learn from your own work?
I do because a lot of my art is educational. I do a lot of educating through my work, and that comes from studying herbalism, studying astrology, and being inspired by the things I study. And so when I paint, I always find that's the best way to remember a plant, is like to paint the plant. I will never forget a plant after I paint it. I can always recognize it. I can always remember like its constituents and its properties.
Wow. Do you ever finish a piece and go, oh wow, that is not what I expected it to be, but it's absolutely perfect and I love it?
Sometimes, yeah.
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 Do you know when you're finished? So many artists tell me that they don't know when to stop.
I totally know when I'm finished. And I think I overly work my work. A lot of people are a lot more, loose and free flow. I'm very tight with my work. I like it very super smooth. So I really overwork my work, but I know exactly when it's finished.
What is the point of painting for you? Is it to sell it? Is it just catharsis? What is it?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think it's really about the process. It feels so good just to be in that state of flow and to be creating.
Do you get in that state of flow often? If you paint every day, I can't imagine it happens every day.
I think there are times when it feels more like work and times where it feels more enjoyable, for sure.
Well, I hope that you enjoy it as much as possible because your work is beautiful and it's just interesting. I look at all of your stuff and I go, I just want to know what's going on up there. So thank you for coming to Fort Wayne and bringing your work, and thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by